Hi everyone, Alison here from Crochet Connections. Today we're going to be learning the treble crochet, and it is the third stitch in the series. We started off with the double crochet, went to the half treble, and now we're at the treble crochet. And it is a very versatile stitch, and I have quite a few examples here of how it is used. I also have another example off screen which I will have to take a picture of and add in. It's actually a baby's cardigan, but I can't fit it in screen at the moment, so we'll come back to that. That also has to do with increasing and decreasing. So as you can see, I've got a couple of examples here, and also I have an example of other materials you can use. I mean, you've probably seen Plan, they make plastic yarn out of plastic shopping bags. Well, this is made out of cassette tapes, just, cassette tapes. I've just rewound it all to one side, as you can see. Probably see better on this side how it's all over here. Just wind it out a little bit, pull one of the ends out, cut it, and pull it out, and you've got your cassette yarn. And this is also to do with the hyperbolic reef I'm working on, and this is being worked in treble crochets, and I am working with, as you can see here, increases. So my standard pattern is increase, treble, increase, treble, and it's quite a big piece, and I'm hoping to make it a rather large piece. So that's one out of the way. This is another increasing piece. It's just a small piece, just to give you an idea of a smaller bit, a shaping bit. Once again, if you lay the bottom flat, you can see how it curves, and you can make nice little frills for the bottom of like dresses or skirts or something. This is very versatile. This is a chevron stitch. You can see they make blankets. It's the same as a baby cardigan basically, with a minor difference in the valley here. There's increases in the peaks, and the decreases are in the valleys here. And it makes a very beautiful blanket once you've worked it up. So yeah, I'll just show you some of the ways the treble can be worked. This you can see is a lot of increases. See, normally I talk about, like I did with the cassette tape, how I've just done 2 stitches into one space. Well, this is basically a scalloped edge or a shell edge. What I've done is I've worked 5 treble stitches into one stitch. So if I've started on the end here, I've chained 1, so that counts as a double crochet. Then my pattern is skip 1 stitch, work 5 treble crochets into the next stitch, skip 1 stitch, which is here, then work 1 double crochet into the next stitch. So that would be, the pattern would be to work your chain 1. But this is a variation on a flower pattern. There's a couple of ways you can fold this. I'm starting with the short tail, and you just, fold it and wrap it in. You can find these patterns all over YouTube with, the stitches. You can see how that's sort of a tight flower. It's very pretty. And you just use the tails to sew the ends together. Okay, so enough of that. We have our examples done. I shall move on. I have my crochet hook and I have my beautiful blue yarn. We will start off with doing our slip knot and our chains, and I will show you how to do the treble as well as some increasing and decreasing. Okay, I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so we're starting off with our regular slip knot, and once again just doing it with one finger, wrapping it around, as you can see, holding it, pulling our back loop over our front loop but leaving it on our finger, pulling our new back loop up over the front loop, but we're taking it off our finger. Now I'm going to pull this finger up like this, so we tighten this loop here. And I had my fingers holding these two strands the whole time. So now I'm going to pull these and tighten them a little bit. And now I have my slip knot where I can put my hook in. And of course, remember how to hold your yarn if you're new to this. It's in my other videos, but I use scissor fingers and gun fingers to describe it. Some people like to wrap around their little finger like this. They use their scissor fingers and their gun finger to tension. Whereas me, I just like to use my scissor fingers and my gun fingers to tension. Then you can just tighten it up. Okay, so I'm just going to do a short chain this time because we've pretty much gotten the idea of how to do our chains. So I'll just go over that again. As you can see, we've got our loop on our hook. And I've got my tension. I'm just going to keep my hook facing down. I go back behind my yarn and over the top. So technically my yarn is over the top of my hook, which is called yarn over. I'm keeping my hook facing down. I've got my thumb and my middle finger on the last stitch I made. I'm putting pressure on my hook and pulling it up, so it makes it easier for my hook here to glide through this loop. And when I get here, see how I'm pulling it at an angle? And then I twist my hook around so I don't lose that stitch. I think I'll just do... That's enough stitches, so that's how many trebles we'll be making. And remember how I talk about the trebles, stitches height. So a double crochet is worth 1 chain in height, a half treble is worth 2 chain in height, and a treble is worth 3 chain in height. So in order to make our first treble, we're going to have to actually make an extra chain 3. So that's as many stitches as we're going to do. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'll do one more to make it... Actually no, 7 is good because then the extra chain 3 will make it 8. Okay, so extra chain 3, 1, oops, 2 and 3. See, when we lift it, that makes our first treble crochet. So we're going to work into the 4th chain from our hook. So instead of going straight in, what we do is we yarn over like we did with our half treble. We go under our loop, we yarn over and pull up a loop, so we've got 3 loops. Now this is where it changes. We yarn over. This time we're just going to pull through 2 loops and we pull up a loop. Reposition, yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops. So now we have 2 treble crochets. So I'll do that again. Yarn over, go into our next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. So we have 3. I'll zoom in, hopefully it'll work this time. We'll see. So we yarn over, we go into our stitch, we yarn over and pull up a loop. Maybe if I zoom out a little bit. That's better. We yarn over again, we pull through the first 2 loops. Now we have 2 loops on our hook. We yarn over and pull through the last 2. So we have 4. Okay, yarn over into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. Yarn over, pull through, pull up a loop. Yarn over. So you know how I talk about tension, and you always see me repositioning my thumb and my middle finger. When you do your double crochets, I don't actually move my thumb up my stitch. I mostly keep it down the bottom, just holding on to this part here when I'm working into the chains. I can't honestly remember when I'm working the next row, I can't honestly remember where I put my thumb, so we'll see. Anyway, pulling through our last 2 loops. So I'll just do the last 3 without commentary. We yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops, yarn over and pull through the second 2 loops. Okay, so that's our first row complete, and when we work down the next row, this looks closer to the back of the double crochets we learnt the first go around. You can see we will work into the spaces between each of these little ridges here. So it's actually pretty easy to find where your stitches are. And of course our last stitch is in the top chain of the chain 3 here. So that is actually this stitch here. So when we come to the end, we'll put our stitch there, and then we'll have a look at getting our last stitch in here. Okay, so because our treble crochet is worth 3 chains in height, that means we chain up 3. And we turn our work. Okay, and as normal, unless your pattern says, we miss this space here because this chain 3 represents our first stitch. We continue as we were before. We yarn over, we go into our next stitch space, making sure we go under the 2 loops here. We yarn over and pull up a loop. We yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops. We yarn over and pull through the second 2 loops, and we have 2 treble crochets. And I'll just repeat that across. This stitch works up really fast. As you can see, it is a tall stitch, so it works up really fast. The only thing with this stitch though is it does have a tendency to have a lot of space in between the stitches, so yeah. Okay, so going into our third last stitch. Second last stitch. Okay, now as I normally do, I can see when I turn back to the front of my work, might have to zoom out actually, that those 2 loops there are the top of my chain 3. And I'm just going to use my hook from this side to try and pick up those loops and loosen them up a bit. I don't seem to be having much luck with that today, so I'm just going to use a bobby pin. It's smaller and easier. So there's 1 loop loosened up. And I'll just use the back of the bobby pin to go under the second loop as well. So you can see from this side where those 2 loops are. Okay, so I can put my hook back on my work. I'll yarn over. I'm going to take that bobby pin out, and it's loosened up the stitches a little bit, but not a great huge amount, so you have to do what I normally do and wiggle my way in there a bit and twist and turn, and this one's being a little bit difficult. If all else fails, hook over the piece of yarn you don't want and go underneath it. See how I've got the piece that I don't want? So then I'm going to go back through the hole, and when I come out the top, I've got the 2 that I do want. The only problem is I just accidentally lost my yarn over. That's okay, it's easy fix now that I've stretched it. There we go. And that is your basic 2 rows of treble crochet. On the next row we will learn how to do a decrease, because we basically have already covered increases in pretty much everything. As I said earlier with the chevron pattern, this is an increase here, it's just the regular 3 stitches into 1 stitch. I've just done 3 trebles into the 1 stitch here, and with this little flower that I made, it is just 5 trebles worked into 1 stitch, and they're just 5 standard trebles. So basically all you really need to learn is how to decrease. So I'm just chaining 3 to turn my work. I'm going to work 1 treble crochet and pull some yarn. Now I've been showing you how to do a decrease 2 together, for example. Treble crochet 2 together, which will be what I'm about to do now. So I've yarned over, I'm going into my stitch, I'm yarning over and pulling up a loop. I'm starting off my stitch as I normally would by yarning over and pulling through 2 loops, but I'm leaving it there. I'm yarning over again, I'm going into my next stitch and I'm pulling up a loop. I'm leaving it there, I'm yarning over, and I'm going to pull through the first 2 loops only. So that's the first 2 loops only. I'm yarning over, and now I'm pulling through the 3 loops left. And that has worked 2 treble crochets into 1. So I'll just finish this row. And you can see how the end of this row is different because the chain sits differently. There's a big gap here, which is actually the second chain, which is not the one we want. If I turn the work, you can see the chain that should be that's the top of the chain, the 2 loops that you want. It should be sitting on top, but it's actually sitting facing this way. You don't have to get the 2 loops on this side. If you wanted to, you could just try and go through it straight through, because it will hold and it will work. If you want to, you can try and go through the exact 2 loops. For today's demonstration, I'm just going through the 2 loops that it was easiest to get through. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to do a multiple of more than 2 decrease. I think I'll try to do a decrease of 3. It can get a bit tricky because you'll be working with, like I said, a couple of loops on your hook at the same time. So we're starting with our regular decrease going in. We're starting a stitch but not finishing it. Repeat that by going into the next stitch, starting it, yarning over and pulling through the first 2 loops and leaving it. So we repeat that again. We yarn over, go into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through the 2 loops and leave it there. So now I've got 1, 2, 3 unfinished stitches. So I've got 4 loops. So I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to pull all of them together. Can you see how that has sort of curved around now? And that's made the decrease. So it is possible to work a number of stitches into a decrease. It just depends on what the pattern says for you to do. So I'm just going to chain a couple and finish out my row. So a bit wonky looking, but you can see decreases and standard stitches in there. These holes on the side are actually pretty standard. There's nothing much you can do about it if you want to work the standard chain 3 turn. There is a blog by Tamara Kelly called Moogly Blog. She has what's called a chainless starting, I think she uses American terms, so it's a double crochet, chainless starting double crochet I think she calls it, and that's a more advanced term, but it doesn't leave the same sort of space here, and it can work in some projects and it can't work in others. It depends on the project. I have used it before. So yes. Okay, you'll have to excuse me, I've just had to switch to holding my camera up now, so it might be a bit unsteady. I couldn't fit this on where my stand was, so this is the other chevron pattern I was showing before. It's a beautiful little baby cardigan. This is a pattern from 1945. It is in American terms though, so if you do want it, go to my my blog, which is down in the description bar, but I will put it up here, and leave me a comment under the post about the treble crochet stitch, the how-to video, which I will also link, and I will link you to the pattern, and if you need help translating I can also help you with that. But this is just to show you, excuse the shadows as well, the increases on the chevron. See, this is not actually using decreases, you actually skip 2 trebles here. You work up your row. In one row you will do 3 in a stitch, work down your row, and then when you get to your next row, in each peak you will actually work 5 treble crochets, and you work down your row, you skip 2, next peak you work 5, and then the row after that it will be 3, the following row it will be 5, so on and so forth. And that's how the cardigan gets wider, and it's such a lovely cardigan. I've actually made a couple of these for my friends when they've had babies, and yes, as you can see there's another one for a little girl. So yes, so if you would like more information on this beautiful pattern, go to my blog and leave a comment under the blog post for this video. Okay everyone, good luck with your treble crochet. Bye!